let me get to Dave Seabrooks first, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Dave says that he said something about me in a drug deal with Jay, right?
Yeah.
Dave claimed he was a drug dealer too. Dave lives off of white women. That's what he
What
does.
wasn't he? If I'm not mistaken, was he married to Karen Gravano?
I don't know if he was married with her, but he was with her. He was actually caught on that case with her father and her brother in Arizona. I'll never forget when Dave first went to Arizona. He said to me, he called me. He said, "Yo, Scoon, I just want you to know, man, because nobody know I'm here. I'm about to meet the bull." And he said, Karen told her mother that I'm half Puerto Rican because Dave light skin. He said, told her I'm half Puerto Rican and half black. And my response to Dave was, I said, man, I said, damn, Dave, that sounds like all nigga to me, man. And he started laughing. But he got in with her because her and her crew of little Italian girls was doing their little thing with the ecstasy in the 90s or whatever. And Dave is like a pretty boy type. His hair gonna always be lined up and meticulous. He's one of them guys. I want to say metrosexual, but he doesn't dress metrosexual. But he might as well be metrosexual. You know what I mean? And he locked in with her. He went to Arizona and he got in with her and her brother, and he ended up having a daughter with her. And he's with a white woman now down there in Arizona. And
What was your relationship with him? Early on, because in the documentary he said that you guys were running the streets together.
No, Dave was around, but Dave, like I said, he's another one. He used to say Tenard was his cousin because his mom and Tenard's mom were really tight. And what he needed to talk about on that documentary.
He gave you props. Let me just make sure he said you was a solid dude. He said you was smart. That
He didn't do no favors. If he wanted to do me a favor, he could have just not mentioned me at all. You understand? I wish all these people would stop mentioning me, stop talking about me, because there's a lot I could say about them. Dave is the type of dude, man, that his cousin, his real cousin from Flushing, because Dave is the connection between Flushing and Hollis with Steve LaBelle, Tony Rincon, all of them, because his father lived over there, right? And his real cousin name is Unique. Dave introduced him to Tenard. They went down to Baltimore together. Tenard was supposed to be his security. Somehow, wink, wink, Unique gets shot in the back of his head and end up paralyzed.
It was over missing heroin.
Yeah, he got robbed. So,
No, Tenard shot him because
well, Unique
because
got robbed.
oh, okay, got you.
Yeah, Unique got robbed. Tenard was supposed to be his protection. That's like
Tenard doesn't have. I mean, this. Unfortunately for Tenard, his past, all of these are almost the same modus operandi for the J.
Listen, man, I don't mean to laugh, but to not be in your protection is almost like the fox guarding the chicken coop. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
I don't know who shot Unique, but I do know that Tenard was his protection, and Unique is paralyzed to this day. And Dave made that introduction. Like, you want to talk about something, talk about that motherfucker.
Right.
You know what I mean? That shit that you really know about, because you don't know nothing about me. I don't know what Dave was thinking. And I text him that, in that documentary, I had to turn it off, man, before I blew a fuse or something. He said Big D was like his brother. He gave everybody their props. That means nobody's props is worth anything. He's a dude that just want to be liked by everybody. And Steve LaBelle got him in there. And, he acted like the ghetto tour guide and trying to break down, sound intellectual about what Hollis was like in the 70s and 80s. Dave, that's not who you are. That's not how you talk. And these white folks are not going to call you back for the next documentary. Just get a job, dude. Just stop. Find another white woman. Get a stable of them. I don't know. But do something positive with yourself. You understand what I'm saying? Like, and that's my take on him. Then there's Hurricane. Hurricane is. I saw one with Marshall Clark where he was talking about, you know, tough. Like
He said in the documentary that, his opinion was that if the people in the studio weren't going to talk to the police, then they should be out on the street handling it like street dudes.
He should be out on the street handling it. You his man, and I know. Only thing, look, I don't even really know Hurricane, man, for real. All I know is he was in the Afros and he got shot in Andrew Jackson when he was in high school. I think he was like the first person in the New York City public school shot. That's it, man. He got a hell of a mean mug game. And I just think that if any of Jay's friends, whether it be Hurricane, Big D, Randy, even Bo don't need to be name checking me. Uh, Big D don't need to be talking about me. Y'all need to find out what really happened. If y'all don't want to tell the police what happened, y'all need to figure out what happened and go deal with it. And just stop all this gossiping shit, man. You know that
Or, it's possible that they knew this whole time.
this is
And,
what is this is what
and
it's
even now, my thing is,
like.
if if Little D, if they were covering for Little D for 18 years, which would make sense for Big D to do, and maybe even Randy, because they're all friends.
Let me ask. No, Randy's not friends with Big D. Let me tell you this, man. I don't even understand why Randy and Lydia would protect Lil D. None of this shit is making sense. So when you ask me these subjective questions, it's
I
like
know.
I can't apply logic to illogical behavior, man. None of this
It's hard. Yeah, I agree. I do agree.
makes sense out of any of it.
I'm worried. I'm worried that the Fed's case
It's gonna fall apart.
is going to fall apart unless they have,
Look,
some of these people in the studio acting as cooperating witnesses, saying yes, this person did it.
look, I can't even. It doesn't even make sense to me that Tinar would live in Jay's house and go with Lil D to confront Jay about anything. Like, where you gonna live now? You homeless? You ain't got nowhere to go. But again, that's me thinking logically. These may not be logical thinkers, but I can't make sense out of this stuff, man, because I would have to get in their head and think like they think, and that's beneath me, man. I can't do it. I can't level down like that.
I
None
don't
of
think the Feds are going to have too much of a problem with Tenor. To be, just in all honesty, I pray for real, true justice, but there's a part of me that believes unequivocally that he was there, that he was one of the people there.
in hindsight, right? And I'll just say I would have never seen this coming as far as Tenard and Lil D being co-defendants. But in hindsight, you got to look at what happened. Big D's telling people it's me and Tenard. Tenard tells the DA it's Little D and Big D. You see what's going on there?
Yeah.
You see what's going on there?
Yeah.
Like, Big D says it's me and Tenard. Tenard says it's Big D and Lil D. And it ended up being Tenard and Lil D being charged, right? So what that almost makes it look like is like Big D, and I'm not saying this is the case because I really don't know. And I'm gonna be real careful because it's not even that I care about any of these dudes, but I just do not want to wrongfully point the finger at somebody who could possibly be innocent.
I agree.
Of that crime, even if they're guilty of other crimes. You know what I mean? It's not my job to solve the goddamn case. The only reason I'm even talking about this shit is because they got my name in it. Because if they didn't have my name in it, I wouldn't give a fuck one way or the other. You know what I mean? But Big D says it's me and Tenard. Tenard says it's Big D and Lil D. See? So could it be that Tenard's motive was to remove himself from the equation and put Big D in it? Or could it have been Big D's motive to remove himself from the equation and put me in it? put Tenard in it. You understand what I'm saying? Like, and I would have never thought about any of this until August when they got arrested. I was like, what? When I got the text message, I was like, these two dudes. I was like, I promise you, I was expecting a different name, but shit.
You know, I know the last bit of court documents I saw, the feds turned over to the defense lawyers, the Brady discovery. It's all sealed stuff, so we can't see what it is. But from what I could gather, it looked like surveillance footage, some ballistic evidence, and it's just hard for me to imagine, with all the hearsay, the speculation, that unless they have Little D, and this is what I've heard. I heard from a source that Little D was deliberately targeted for investigation almost immediately after the murder, or several years after. I think they had investigated him for 7 years straight.
Yeah, and again,
I guess what I'm trying to say is unless they have a confession from him as well.
they need a confession from somebody because there's been too many suspects. And unless they got some kind of forensic evidence and credible eyewitness testimony, any defense lawyer is going to bring up all these different leads, suspects, theories, and so on and so forth. And again, I don't really know the crux of the case.
Right.
To my knowledge, Jay wasn't dealing drugs, but maybe he was. I don't know. I can't
Right.
speak to none of that shit.
So, Randy Allen, we've talked about Lydia High, and I've heard that Lydia has said this from the beginning, that it was Tenard Washington, and that the second killer had a tattoo on his neck. And
why didn't they arrest Tenard?
Well, I from what I heard, the police decided, it wasn't. The police kind of botched it. Didn't offer witness protection, and she ended up fleeing. And
you don't need witness protection. It's fucking Tenard. He was robbing the damn hotel with
motels.
Yeah, he's robbing the motel with a toy gun. It's Tenard. He's a bum, man. Come on, you don't need witness protection. Let's be real here. Like, he's not part of no organized crime family or nothing like that. He's just a loose cannon. So if she really saw that it was Tenard, and what you need witness protection for? Like, who's gonna come get you? Big D worked for the police. Tenard's just a loser, man. And again, I'm not saying that he did it. I don't know. But I know his reach ain't that far. He was homeless, living at Jay's family house. And when his stuff got thrown out in the street, he had nowhere to go, and he was robbing motels with a toy gun. You don't need witness protection from that guy. Like, how long was he going to last before the police picked him up? That's all the protection you need is for him to be off the street, and that ain't going to take long. He knocks on the jail door.
Let's talk about the past 18 years, because 18 years is a really long time to have something of this magnitude hanging over your head.
It was tough.
Yeah. What was it like? Let's say in the first. Let's just say the first 2 years. What did you have to do?
It was get out of New York. And I got
did you worry to leave New York for your safety, or just?
Well, I don't want to sound too cocky, but I ain't really never been worried about no kind of issues in the streets. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I'm capable enough. I could see things coming. I could position myself, or even get out the way if I need to. You dig? But what I was concerned with was the NYPD, because I felt like as long as I was in New York, and they had me pegged as like a person of interest or whatever they want to call me, it would have been real easy for them to try to pick me up on another charge and put me on ice while they try to, work this out. Because these are the type of things the cops do. One of the names that they had tossed around was an individual from South Jamaica who I won't mention his name because he don't need to be revisited. However, there was a cop shot in Harlem around the Polo Grounds, and the police claimed that they took his fingerprints off a car parked on the street. They didn't say he was the shooter or anything. They claimed that they got his fingerprints off a vehicle on that street where the cop was shot, and they used that as the pretext to pick him up. And he ended up getting cornered in a place in Brooklyn. He's out of Queens, but he was in Brooklyn, and he had a gun, and it was like a hostage situation, a standoff. And what he did was he broke the gun while he was in there and then turned himself in. So they said the gun was inoperable. Long story short, he ended up doing about 5 or 6 years. And they did that to him because his name was also mentioned with Jam Master Jay. Supreme got picked up in December of 2002. The feds closed in on him because his name was mentioned with Jam Master Jay. Like this thing has got so many people who didn't have anything to do with it all messed up. And yes, I did have that cloud over my head, but I didn't end up like those two guys. Because Preem is gone for good, and the other dude, he did like 5 or 6 years because they keyed on him because of Jay. So I left New York because I didn't want them to find my fingerprints on a car with somebody. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
They do things like this, you see. And I was in Atlanta, and I stayed in the house for about a year before I even came outside.
What did you do for, in this time period? What were you doing for money and employment, if you don't mind me asking?
Man,
you know,
I'm very resourceful. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm very resourceful. No, real talk, man. I was selling cigarettes.
gotcha.
It's not legal, but shit, I was selling cigarettes because the cigarette tax had went up, and I don't mean I was out there. So I was getting them cheap down south and sending them up to New York, and dudes was selling them and sending me my money back.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Because in New York, a pack was like $7 or $8 or something like that, and you could sell them for $5 on the street. So that's how I was making my money. But again, I stayed in the crib for about a year, and then my man, he was selling. It was the Mitchell and Ness throwback jerseys and all that, and I started going out the house with him.
Now, I want the audience to understand something about you, though. Hustler, obviously, but you went to Hampton, graduated.
No, I didn't graduate.
Oh, you didn't graduate.
No, I only went for 1 year, man. I went for 1 year. I was a 22-year-old freshman, and I went while I was out on appeal bail. I had actually went to trial and got convicted, and I appealed the conviction and overturned it. I created case law with my appeal, my successful appeal, and I was allowed to stay out while I was in college because I wouldn't be in New York. I'll never forget the judge, Judge Pearl Appleman, Part AP6 in Long Island City Superior Court. And I went down to Hampton and went to school. I was down there for a year, and I actually met the best network. I'm not gonna say the best network. I met a great network of the kind of black people I would have never met if I didn't go to college. Hampton is a HBCU, has a rich history, and I guess it's kind of like where the black elites send their kids: Howard, Hampton, Morehouse, Tuskegee, Spelman. Those schools. So I got to meet some kids, people my age, close to my age, who came from a very different background than me, and it's amazing because that connection pays dividends to this day. Um, I'm business partners with a guy I met at Hampton, and
So
that's how
how did you, and this is really interesting to me because I mean, this is a worldwide case.
Mhm.
You're down in Atlanta hustling cigarettes. This is almost 20 years ago, so you'd have been around 38.
Yeah,
You know,
I was 38 when I left
38.
New York in 2002.
How did you start transitioning into something more legal? Whether cigarettes and because I know that you when I met you early on, uh,
Mhm.
you know, um, I know that you were aspiring to be into films, and I guess what I'm trying to say is how did that transition into anything legal start? Because that leads up to my next series of questions on how you transformed yourself like this.
You know what, man? To be honest with you, this is probably gonna be the best part of the interview because this is gonna give inspiration and a blueprint to people who really want to do right. The transition for me started before the J thing. I just knew the way that I was living in the 80s and early 90s. I knew that them days were numbered. So I was trying to do different things. You heard in '96 I was trying to do the dedication album for Stretch. See, I was trying to do different things. Of course, like most people, the first thing I wanted to do was something in music because that's what we all do. We don't get in the music business, you know what I mean? But that didn't work out, man. And I was just thinking. And one day I was sitting on the bench in the projects in Long Island City, and I looked at the sky. I said, "Man, who the fuck am I?" Because I was going through this thing in my life where I wasn't who I used to be, and I didn't know I didn't know how to be who I wanted to be. So I was at this crossroads, man, and I just looked at the sky and I was like, "Yo, man, who the fuck am I?" And then the answer came to me like,
What was driving that? What was driving the
I was
insecurity?
well, because things weren't working out. I'm a dude that always touch paper, and I'm in this transitionary phase where I don't have no money. It's tough when you try to reinvent yourself, where your old network is useless because what they're doing is what you're trying to get away from, but you
Right.
don't have no current network, so you got to build it from the ground up, and you got to build it from the start. You see, so my thing was the answer came to me says you're a salesman and you don't have no product because I didn't have nothing to sell. So then I tapped into myself and I wrote a screenplay called Fall from Grace because that was really my life. I fell from grace. And I wrote a dope ass script, man. Everybody that read it loved it.
How did you learn how to write scripts? I mean, did it just come natural? Did you take courses? What got you into it on that level? I mean, a lot of people say I want to make a movie, and it might come out like a hood movie, or
I went down to the village, right? Because somebody told me they sold scripts to movies down there to get one and read it. And so I went and I picked up the script and I looked through it and I was like, I didn't even buy it. I said, yo, I could do this shit. And I put it down and I went and bought this software called Final Draft. And I still got it too. I got the latest Final Draft. You know what I mean? Like, and that was 18 years ago. And I just set out and I poured my heart and soul into it. And it just came out so dope. But getting a movie made is a different process. But anyway, the word got around that I could write in the hood. And then people connected. The cat came to me and they wanted me to write the cat story. And I wrote it and I finished it 2 weeks before Jay got killed. And so I went from writing a movie to being in a movie, right? And when I was in Atlanta, I'm thinking like, there's a saying that I have that I came up with it after I read The Art of War. And my favorite chapter in The Art of War is the chapter on spies, you know? And what I learned from reading that is that, and these are my words, I said, you know, a blessing and a curse are one and the same, the difference being in the application. So it means whatever happens in your life, you got to find a way to make it work for you and not let it defeat you. So for me, I started thinking, yo, okay, they said I killed Jay. I made all the news. I can't get rid of this shit. How can I make it work for me? So I emailed Playboy because Playboy, I had learned, had some kind of option agreement with Brian Grazer from Imagine Entertainment or something, that he would option their articles. So I figured if I could get an article in Playboy, I could, get some attention on my script. I mean, this is me thinking, but not really understanding how complex the whole process is. But
Right.
again, I'm swinging for the fences, right? So I emailed Playboy because you could submit articles, and I said I don't have an article. I got something better. This is my name. This is what I'm accused of, and I haven't talked to anybody, but I'll talk to you. So the features editor at the time was Christopher Napolitano. He emailed me back, so we went back and forth. And of course, I can write. I'm articulate. You know what I mean? And I know what I got to do. So I'm talking to, emailing. We get on the phone, and he said, Curtis, I want to do the story, but I got to pitch it to my bosses, and nobody could could do this better than you. So there was a conference call. There was people in New York and somewhere other places in the country. And yo, man, I'll never forget that day. I was in my room in my boxes, walking around on the phone, talking to them, telling them the story. And when I finished, man, they was like, all I heard was like, wow, what a story. And I heard somebody else say, wow, what a life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, yo, and yo, then I got in Playboy.
Yeah.
I didn't try to be in no street magazine. I don't. Nobody reads that shit. Nobody who matters.
That was incredible. Right after.
Remember, that's when you
Yeah.
first came to the Warwick
Yep.
Hotel. You and Chuck,
Yep.
and with Frank Owen. Playboy signed the writer, and I also negotiated 1,000-word sidebar out of them, so I could be a published journalist. And they paid me $2 a word. I got the $2,000, but of course I used the article to plug my script
Right.
1013 because that's what I was thinking. Turns out that article ended up being instrumental in Ethan Brown securing his book deal
Right. But I wanted to
for
talk a little bit about
Queen's
that.
Reign Supreme.
Queen's Reign Supreme.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
at the beginning of that book, he thanks the snake charmer, which
Yeah.
was your handle. What role did you have in that book, Queen's Reign Supreme?
I pitched the book to Ethan. I got all the interviews. Nobody would talk to Ethan. Ethan had tried to get several book deals and failed. That book was his first book deal, and yo, I guided him through that world. And shit, it worked out for him. It worked out for both of us in different ways. It started me on a TV production thing where I was working on American Gangster. We did the Fat Cat episode, of course, because of the book. Then we did I mean, I was a consultant on the Fat Cat episode, a co-producer on the Supreme episode, and then I fully produced the Jamaican Shower Posse episode by myself. And keep in mind, Greg, I'm a published journalist with no journalism degree.
Right.
Yo, man,
Right.
I'm a producer with credits, and I never went to film school. You understand?
Yeah, it's an amazing.
That's just what determination and discipline will get you. If you really want it, man, like I found a way to make it all work for myself. Of course, Ethan went on to do a couple other books. I don't know,
Snitch.
Snitch and some other book about some killings down there in Louisiana.
Oh yeah.
But I think Queen's Reign Supreme will always be his best book.
Yeah. It's
You
great.
know, we probably could have done more things together, but it wasn't meant to be. You know what it is? It's like a lot of people, man, out of ego, they have an inflated sense of self, you know, and they really think that they could do something on their own. And it's because they don't really appreciate your contribution. Because the whole time you're doing something, they're telling themselves that they're doing it. See, how in the fuck did his book do more for me than it did for him.
Right.
You understand what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Yo,
Yeah.
don't that tell a story right there?
Yeah.
You know,
So,
I'm a contributor. I even named the book. I called it Queens Reign Supreme because KRS to me, he made his, you know, I'm still with that, you know, rep the hood thing a little bit. He made his name off of dissing Queens, and his name stood for Knowledge Reign Supreme. So I said, you know what? Fuck KRS. We gonna call this Queens Reign Supreme. Knowledge don't reign supreme. We reign supreme. And that was it. You know what I mean? And from the book, like I said, we did the TV thing, and I was making money off of that. And I also got to write an article in King magazine. The only interview Fat Cat ever did. I went to Clinton Danamora, interviewed him. It was published in King magazine. I did that by myself. Ethan did help me with that. I do have to give him credit for that, you know. I just think that if he had helped me more, I could have helped him more. I would have helped him more. But when I felt like he wanted to keep me in a certain position, I just shot right past him. You
right.
know, let me just be candid here, man. Ethan's a white dude. Ethan is Jewish. In entertainment, the Jewish black tandem has always been dynamic. You see, but they gotta respect each other. You dig what I'm saying? Like, I gotta respect what you do. You gotta respect what I do. We gotta have a symbiotic relationship, man. And
Yeah.
it can work out. And I'm down for that. You know what I mean? Because you can get me in places that I wouldn't normally get in, and I get you in places you wouldn't get in. And really, the places I get you in make you more valuable to the places that you got access to, and vice versa.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I'm totally understanding and acknowledging the mutual value. I just don't think that was mutually the case, though.
Mhm.
You know?
It's
So
unfortunate.
Frank Owen offered me 10% of the royalties, none of the advance, and said I could sleep on his couch when he
Mm.
worked on the book. And I'm a grown man. Like, these dudes are all crazy, man. You know what I mean? But yeah, so from American Gangster, I took my filmmaking experience and I did my own film. See the poster in the back, black, white, and blue.
Yeah.
And
But before we get to that, right?
go
I don't want to. I want to talk about one thing that's important.
ahead, bro.
1013. You know, I remember that script early on. I even remember having a conversation with you where you were going to go pitch it, or you were in the process of pitching it to 50 Cent, or maybe the lineage of it. It may not have been the 1013 draft,
I talked
but
to you on the phone about it. And
what happened with that? Because I know there was a lawsuit over you saying or you feeling that Howard was directly, influenced by that. And I'm not. I just want to be clear, real quick.
the power thing, but let me be clear on the script.
Mm.
Look, 50 read the script, and me and 50, he called me and we talked. And I never met 50. He's a lot younger than me. I think he's about 11 years younger than me. So we're not from the same era. We're not from the same era, nothing. You know what I mean? But he liked the script, and he liked that street shit. So we talked. I made a critical blunder, right, when I was talking to him, and I didn't realize it till after. So I'm talking to 50 about the script, and he's interested in it, but I'm making suggestions about who could play who. I suggested that Ice Cube could play Cat because Cube kind of looked like Cat. You know what I mean? I was just basing it on that. I didn't realize when I was suggesting that I was stepping on his toes. You see, it was unintentional, but that just come from me being green at the time and being overly enthusiastic, like, oh shit, I'm about to. Because remember, I wrote my first script in 2000, and now, like, yo, man, 6 years later, I'm talking to Fifth about getting this thing
You
going.
should have put fifth in the starring role.
It wasn't for me to put nobody in the starring role because I didn't have any goddamn money.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying it in the pitch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but and I'm sharing this with people so they can understand when they make a pitch. If you just got an idea, man, and you talking to somebody with money, they drive in the car, man. If you don't like where it's going, you could just get out the car. But you damn sure ain't gonna be making no directions from the passenger seat or the
Right.
back seat. And that was a valuable lesson for me. Fifth didn't tell me anything. He just wasn't interested because he saw that I had my own ideas. I didn't know he saw himself playing fat. And just to be clear, if he happens to see this, I thought higher of him than being an actor. I saw him as being the executive producer, like damn near the studio. I didn't know he wanted to be talent in front of the camera. I thought it was going to be his thing, and I was just sharing my ideas of what you know what I mean, and that was that. Yeah, I definitely didn't mean no harm to the dude. Now, as far as power go, that's a whole different story. So I had gotten a little write up in page 6 in the New York Post about 1013, and a producer out of L.A. named Aaron Schuster hollered at me. Again, Aaron is Jewish. So I'm thinking, okay, I got another one. It didn't work out with Ethan. I got another Jewish, business associate here. We could work this thing. Because again, in entertainment, man, that black Jewish tandem thing is strong. Look, Russell, Leor. I mean, you can go down the line. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like it just repeats itself over and over. So anyway, Aaron read the script and he was like, you know what, Curtis? I think this needs to be a fiction. And I think we need to turn it into a TV series. Because he had people up at Showtime, um, Fox, HBO. I did all the interviews with him. You know what I mean? I mean, we pitched. I went out to LA and we pitched. We turned it into a series called Dangerous. But because we were going commercial, I changed the characters around and I created a white character that would, you know, instead of Ghost, his name was Heavy, and I created a white character, and we called him Shamrock. You know what I mean? So, um, it was based in the '80s. It wasn't contemporary like Power. So when I saw the trailer for Power, I was like, "Yo, who the fuck put a white dude in a black street series?" Because that was my idea with Dangerous. Then the dude that I wrote it with, he had pitched it to what's his name, James DuBose, black producer
Yeah.
out of Hollywood, out of L.A. And James DuBose had Byron sent it to James DuBose as a writing sample. James DuBose read it and was like, "Oh shit, yo, I want to do this," and he wanted to make Mano play Heavy. So what Mano did was Mano contacted 50, and 50 and Mano had a meeting with James DuBose about Dangerous, my project.
Mm.
It never happened with James DuBose, but next thing 50 left and came up with Power. I saw similarities in it. I know they had met about my project. Um, the evidence wasn't compelling enough. It didn't matter to me. I just I just needed to file the claim to make it clear that one, I don't really give a fuck about suing anybody or any company. A lot of people they just eat shit like that because they don't want to rub nobody the wrong way and be blackballed.
Or he can't afford to fight it.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. It did cost a lot of money. I did happen to have some attorneys that were willing to do it. Um, you know, pro bono, or I forgot the word they use when they work for contingency. Yeah, they did it on contingency, and I don't think I had the best legal representation, in that matter. But I just felt like I had to do something to let it be known that you just can't do that to me and get away with it, So
So what was your next project? How did you? I mean, that's very discouraging to see happen. I mean, you know, um, how did you recover from that? What was next?
um
And let me ask you this: through doing all of this, how did you start learning about the business side of things? Being self-educated. Your film company is called Top of the Food Chain. How did you, form a real company and you know, start?
because you got to think about my age and all the time, all the things I've done, all the things I've failed at, things I've succeeded at. I mean, my failures outnumber my successes. I just want to share that with people. Like, man, I might try 12 things and maybe only one will work. It's just that when that one works, man, it really works. So it makes it worthwhile. You just cannot get discouraged and you cannot be afraid of failure at all. I didn't think I was going to win the lawsuit, but I had to do it anyway to set a precedent, to make people think twice about. They'd be like, "Nah, don't mess with him, man. Do it. He'll have you in court, and you don't need the bad press." You understand what I'm saying? Like, yo, look, that's just my philosophy, And again, I just want to say I don't have no problems with 50. The judge ruled against me and ruled in his favor. I accept that. It's over. Keep
Right.
pushing. I could see 50. It ain't nothing, you know what I mean? Because ultimately, what he did, that's what he did, man. It's like, is it possible he took my idea? Yeah, it's possible. But we're not gonna cry over that shit because we got plenty more ideas. I'm not a one trick pony, you understand? So
Yeah.
anyway, like I pivoted after that. I started with the social media thing and with Obama and all that.
This is the formation of Scoon TV.
Um, on Twitter, not the podcast.
Okay.
See, uh, I just was tweeting, and Trayvon Martin had got killed. Then Michael Brown, and everybody was just, kind of like how they are now with Breonna Taylor and Jacob Blake and George Floyd, and that's just all people talk about. You know what I mean? And I don't mean no harm, but I know about at least 30 murder victims, people that I know personally that have been murdered. You know what I mean? Some were close, most weren't, but I knew them. So I may be a little desensitized to the loss of life, and not to sound like Cameron and paid in full, but yo, this happened every day, B. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, yo,
Yeah. I do.
really, you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Like, yo, but anyway, what I found was there's a certain something was amiss. People that were saying they would represent the black community in the hood or whatever, their views didn't line up with mine. And they're quick to call people coons and all that on social media. I didn't like the way that there's no diversity of thought in the black community. It's either you think like this and you're black, or if you deviate from this thinking, you're not black, you're a coon, you're this, that, the other. So my rebuttal to all of that was Black, White, and Blue. And it's a film about race, politics, and police. And
Let's start there. Um, why did you, of all things, as you are starting your career? I mean, most people look at your life and think that that's what the documentary that's what your documentary should be about. Pick one story and you have it. But I mean, why did you choose to start in Baltimore? Is it because of your lifelong connection there? Is it because of the Freddie Gray? Why was that the entry point for Black, White, and Blue?
because a dude named Al Marcus, I ran into him. He knew who I was off of Twitter. I guess in some respects, I might be a little Twitter famous, if that's a thing.
It is.
He said he said, yo man, I follow you on Twitter, blah 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 blah. And he told me he had some footage and this, that, the other. And man, when I saw the footage, I was like, all right, cool. Let's do what we do. Now, my director Asia had shot some footage in Baltimore, but Al had some footage, and man, it was all love. Al, it was just so riveting. Um, we decided to start with that because documentaries can be slow paced sometimes. You gotta get into the subject matter to 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 pay attention. But my joint starts off crazy, and I was able to get. It's a true Twitter project, from the content to getting Fonte from Lil Brother, who's now with Foreign Exchange with Zoe. They did the music for me. You know what I mean? Like I connected with them on Twitter. Um, the interviews, Killer Mike, Charlemagne.
How was it, reaching out to these people? Who else did you reach out to? Like, I mean, what was it like when you first got the reply from Fonte and Foreign Exchange? Because they're critically acclaimed hip hop group.
Yeah, yo, Fonte is a cool dude, man. Like, yo, honestly, like sometimes that's why when I start criticizing the music business and hip hop, I gotta be real. I gotta put a disclaimer because there are good people in hip hop. You know what I mean? Like everybody's not like a fake gangster and all that. And Tay's just a smart, talented producer, songwriter. Oh, yo, look,
Right.
man, I told him over the phone the themes that I needed for the film, and they came back with the stems and sent it to me, man, just
Uh,
over the phone. He didn't even watch the film, bro. Like, yo, it was like, and he sent me the music.
why do you think people were so willing to work with you? Do you think it's because of the street fame? Do you think it's because of the grind? I mean,
I'm gonna tell you something. It's funny with me, right? When people like me, they really like me.
right.
They don't like me, they really don't like me. You know. So I just connected with people that like me, man. Charlemagne, good money. I don't, and again, I don't agree with a lot of the politics and all that. Charlemagne did three things for me, man. He got in the interview for the film. He had my guy Coleman Young, who was in the film when he ran for mayor in 2017, had him on the Breakfast Club. And then he had me and Asia on the Breakfast Club.
He's a
So I've
good dude.
never done anything for Charlemagne, never given him any money, anything. And even though like our politics are very different, there's if there's anything that I could do for Charlemagne at any time, as time go on, he calling any favor on me, man, I got to answer
Right.
just on principle. You understand what I'm saying? Like
I do.
I
I
don't
do.
care about what anybody else got to say about him because I see what people be saying and all that, and
No, he's a good dude. We started off with him early on as well. And, when Breakfast Club was popping, he made sure we got up on there. You know what I
yo,
mean?
like yo, three times, man. Like, yo, I've done nothing for this guy. Nothing. So the first time he called me for anything, I'll be too happy. You understand what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, yo, because I feel like I own him, man. But yeah, Charlemagne, Killer Mike, same thing.
Now, what? Um, let's tell the people who haven't watched Black, White, and Blue. What's the premise of it? What?
Well, what I tried to do was not give people the same one-sided view. I tried to provide, contrasting views. So there's Trump supporters in there. There's Black Lives Matter supporters, Black Lives Matter critics. Like I wanted an objective piece. I think what we get a lot of times are more like programming and propaganda, pretty predictable which way it's going to go. The cops are bad, the country's bad. In Black, White, and Blue, I even had Michael Dowd, cop in there, white cop, and he was telling his story of how you stop and frisk and from a cop's perspective. See, I think it's important if you're a filmmaker to get all sides of the story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what we have now is a whole lot of one-sided storytelling, and it doesn't really encourage thinking. It doesn't. It's just It's almost as if like people are saying, if I want you to think, I'm going to give you a thought. Watch this documentary. And one of the other things that I found really startling is when you look at all these black trauma documentaries. I don't care if it's Khalif Browder, Sandra Bland, Say My Name. It doesn't matter. Central Park 5. When you look at who made them, it's never us, bro.
Mm.
There'll be a whole list of names, and there's and I'm not saying that white people can't make documentaries about black struggle, but all these black people with cameras, and why aren't we have to be able to tell our own stories. And usually we get excluded from that because we're either we don't have the money, or if we do have the money, we don't have access to the distribution and marketing networks. Because it's a machine, man. They'll hit a switch and boom. And also a lot of these documentaries, they promote certain agendas. And we don't really realize it because we're like a frog in a boiling pot. The temperature's getting hotter, but we don't notice it. So they're subtly pushing different ideas on us. I'll give you an example. There was a film in Sundance called Whose Streets. Nobody's ever really seen it. It won an award at Sundance, and it was about the Ferguson riots. But the thing about Whose Streets, because the chant, Whose Streets, our streets. Okay, cool. This protest thing is real popular. But the thing about Whose Streets is, with all the real drama in Ferguson, Whose Streets end up being about a fictitious lesbian couple and their challenges during the riots. Now, so we don't went from Mike Brown and Darren Seals, who I dedicated my film to, by the way. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, rest in peace. We went from Mike Brown and Darren Seals to a fictitious lesbian couple. Whose idea was that? The people funding it, of course. And that's the risk we run. When we're always at the beck and call of people because of their money, we're ready to take a check, then we gotta toe the line for them. We gotta talk about what they want us to talk about. And that's the difference with my film. See, Black, White, and Blue, it's objective because I funded it. I didn't get a check from nobody. But that's also why it was tough for it to get distribution. I submitted it to so many film festivals and not one accepted it. But if you go on Amazon and you read the reviews, and those aren't paid people I know who did it, those are actual real reviews. This film has been seen in 17 countries. But that kind of objectivity is not what anybody wants from black people. You either promote and talk about what we want you to talk about, or we don't fund you. Or we won't give you access.
Do you think George Floyd, the situation with George Floyd and the reaction to the white community saying, okay, we need more of these stories. We need more black filmmakers. We need more of these stories. Do you think there'll be a change for black filmmakers like yourself independently? Meaning maybe not from a funding standpoint, but at least from a reach or a distribution standpoint?
I think it can be done, right? I did it. I might be a little smart or something, but I don't think that I'm all that special. If I did it, other people can do it, right? Here's something that I really think is important. We got to make up our mind. Do we want money? Do we want success? Or do we want acceptance and access? You see, because I don't really care about an Oscar. I thought I cared about Sundance. I don't even care about Sundance anymore. Because what I realized is that all of these awards and accolades and so on, they're part of a system, and it requires you conforming to their standards. And I don't want to conform to anyone's standards. I want to be, if I'm accepted, I want to be accepted as me. I don't want to have to conform to be what makes you comfortable. I don't want to have to put things in my film that makes you comfortable. That's not the essence of telling your own story. You see, and a lot of us, we forfeit that because we really want to be in them rooms. Like a lot of black people talk about race all day, every day, But white people live in their head rent free. They don't really even want money, man. They just want to be. They just want to get invited not to the cookout, but to the dinner party. You understand what I'm saying? Like they just want to be there dressed like white people, talking like white people, and that's cool. But that's not what I want to do. I just want to be. I just want to do what I want to do, and be accepted for it, and that's it. Accepted by who accepts it. And if you don't accept it, I ain't worrying about you, but somebody will. And ironically, guess what? Most of the people who bought my film and left reviews are white. You
Of
know,
course, of course.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so white people don't have a problem with the
Does
things.
that you know does that have the potential to shape your next film? You know, I guess.
Right now, right?
Mhm.
I'm working on a film right now, and it's called The American Dream, right? And what I'm really doing is documenting every step of the way with my guy Coleman. I met Coleman in Detroit, and he's in Black, White, and Blue.
So we're talking about Coleman Young Jr.
Coleman Young the second, that's
the
right.
second.
Coleman Young the first is the first black mayor of Detroit, was the mayor for 5 terms, 5 consecutive terms, 20 years straight, from 1973 to 1993, right? And his son is a political prodigy. He just turned 38 the other day, but he's already been an elected official for 12 years. He was a state rep for 4 years, and he was state senator for 8 years.
How did you connect with him?
It was
Through the documentary?
the documentary. Yeah, I didn't even know he was until I met him for the documentary, and that's a story in itself. But I'm gonna keep moving, right? So after I met Coleman, I was impressed by his integrity. I could tell, and I left and I said, "Man, this dude gonna run for mayor. And when he run for mayor, I want to help him." So he did. In 2017, he announced he was gonna run for mayor, and I reached out, and I was his number one backer. I donated the most money to his campaign, to his super PAC, and I got him up on the Breakfast Club and all that. And he lost. He didn't have any money. He had like maybe I learned a lot about politics with that move. He he had about maybe close to 50,000. I raised most of it for him, and he got 29% of the vote. Now that sounds like he lost a landslide, but when you think about the mayor, the incumbent mayor, had $2.5 million. See, if Coleman can get 30% of the vote with 50,000, imagine what he could do with $500,000. He'd be the mayor.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So after that election ended, John Conyers stepped down from his seat as a congressman from the 13th district in Michigan. Coleman threw his hat in the ring. I got behind him again. He did better this time, but there's a thing that to really understand politics, you got to know that money is raised nationally for the designated local candidates. And if you're not part of that machine, if you're not anointed by the DNC, you're not going to be able to get that money.
Right.
You're going to need to campaign. So in both instances, Mike Duggan, the incumbent mayor, the first white mayor since Coleman father, he was the DNC's guy. He's good friends with Joe Biden, by the way. And in Michigan, Rashida Tlaib was the DNC's choice. Even though she's Palestinian, and there aren't really that many Palestinians in there, mostly black, some white. The 13th district was like the second poorest district in the country. And Rashida Tlaib got elected talking about immigration and Palestine. None of that helps the people in the 13th district. See, and that's what I learned about politics, about why politics doesn't work for black people. Because we get caught up in the national discourse. We're worrying about everything. We're worrying about what's going on in Louisville, what's going on in Milwaukee, what's going on in Illinois. You know what I mean? But we're not paying attention to what's happening in the district where we vote. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
Yo,
Local politics.
local politics affects your schools, your property taxes. That should be on your mind first and foremost. And the other thing I learned about politics is that you just can't really depend on black people to raise money.
Mm.
So even though you have black candidates and black politicians, they're going to serve the people who financed them, not the people who voted for them. You see?
Well, I mean, that's a we shouldn't just relegate that to black people. That's politics in
Well,
general.
but guess what though? I'm not going to. That's politics in general, but black people are targeted with racial conversations. They're thinking that they're going to get something. I don't think the other people are promised anything based on their race.
Right.
Black people are encouraged to vote for this black person because they're black. They're going to do something for you. And that's not what's happening with everybody else. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah, it's the typical political, like, promise you stuff and maybe don't do it. But there's the added incentive of race. And when that's not enough, there's a racial incident that'll be used and exploited to galvanize the black vote. So we're always being manipulated. You know what I mean? And again, the difference with us and other people is a lot of those other people, they do donate to campaigns. So their voice has to be heard to some degree. If we don't donate, nobody's paying us any attention. And I can tell you from the 2 campaigns I've been in, the reason why I was the number 1 donor is because nobody else was donating any goddamn money. You know what I mean? Like, yo, we got a long list of what we want.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. How you gonna pay for it?
You gonna pay for it. You know, like, and that's just what it is, man.
Well, listen, man. I appreciate this 2 hour and 30-minute sit down.
Wasn't that wrong?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And I know that you are a relatively reserved person, so I appreciate the candidness, in especially talking about the J stuff. I hope that the curtain closes on this scene regarding Jam Master Jay in a way that we all find satisfactory, and that allows you to really move on with your life, because I can imagine that things are even though this indictment has happened, that still a chaotic or traumatic situation to be associated with.
I just want to just say that to Jay's people and to everybody who want to make documentaries or even YouTube clips about it, just be mindful, man, that 18 years, it's clear that I didn't have anything to do with this. And I'm doing so many good things. And every time people mention my name, it makes it that much harder, not only for me to do for myself, but to do for others, And if nothing else, at least respect that, You ain't gotta like me, but I'm out here I'm doing things, man. I'm not out here, flexing this new Lambo that I bought and my chain drip low and all this stupid. Man, I really put my money back into the community in different ways, man. And I focus on the kids. I've helped so many people buy their first homes by providing jobs for them. Like, yeah, I'll be proud when, like, people who graduate from college and I gave them their first job, and they buy their first house and they share that with me. That's a good feeling, man. Like that's who I am, Like, instead of bragging about how many cars I got or posting pictures where I vacationed, I get a lot of pleasure out of how many people I helped.
It's great, man.
That's
Great.
That's how I want people to think of me, man. That's who I am. Never mind who I was. You know what I mean? Like I was just a young dude growing up in a rough time, and I just acclimated to the environment. People don't really realize it, but in New York City, from 1985 to 1992, New York City averaged over 2,000 murders a year, peaking in 1991 with over 2,200 murders. You're talking about five to six murders every single day for a year. And that's the era I came of age in. See, these dudes rap about killing and all that stuff, but it ain't really happening like that, like it did when I was growing up. You heard me say I know at least 30 murder victims. I'm not bragging about that. Like you got to understand what that does to someone when every 6 months you hear somebody got murdered. Not died of sickness, not died in a car accident, but murdered.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like so tough times make tough men, you know what I mean? But old age make wise men.
Right.
Feel me? Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know
I'm trying to be wise.
and you see the grays coming, you know what I mean? So look. All right, man.
All right, man.
Thank you so much.
Yo, no problem at all, man. Thank you very much, Scoon. I appreciate it, man, and we'll definitely be in touch.